Hello, I'm delighted to be joined today by Nila Mistry. Nila is a financial life planner and certified money coach, which is very cool. She works mainly with professional women to live a life with more peace, security, freedom, and possibilities through her planning. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. Nila, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on your show. I feel really honoured.
It's an absolute pleasure. I know that our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing everything you've got to say today. I want to start off by I know you've talked to me about the feeling of not being the financial person in a relationship, and that's something that comes up for our listeners loads. It's a really big thing, and I just wondered if you could talk me through that a bit, because obviously that's not the case now.
Yeah. No, I'm in a completely different relationship now.
Yeah. So how did that feel? How was it? How did it come about, I guess, first, that you were the not financial person in your relationship?
Yeah, so I was quite young, so I'd only just started my financial services career, and it's around the time when I started with Barclays Life, and he had the better income, and I just started out, so I was on quite a low income. I was on a commission basis, so to even buy a property, I didn't really have enough income to do that. So it just so happened that when we were looking to buy a house, that he did it all on his income. He also worked for a bank, but he was more of an analyst programmer. So, it's pretty nifty with spreadsheets, and he created plans, and he bought a car, so he had like payment plans. He just knew how to do things. So it just naturally meant that he took over. But I also had things that I was pretty good at. I mean, I was good at accumulating and saving. So then it sort of naturally transpired that I'll do all the savings and he'll do all the planning. But the things that I sort of noticed was he liked to buy things on credit and then make a plan and then pay it off, whereas for me, I preferred to have the money and then I couldn't, if I had the money, then I'd buy it. If I didn't, then I'd wait. So that was the difference. So he sort of managed the bills, I managed the food and the savings, and I didn't mind that. I was quite happy with it, because it was familiar, because my dad, when I was younger, my mum and dad had a similar scenario. My dad worked, he managed all the money, and she managed like the shopping. He'd always make sure that he had, that there was cash in her purse all the time. So and that's how it was. So yeah, so that's how it sort of transpired. I'm trying to think that why I didn't mind that so much, and thinking back, I also thought that, hang on a minute, when I was saving, it made me feel good, because part of that was a little bit of validation as well, because that meant that I was doing well. And it was one of the things that my dad really valued, that if you accumulate your savings, you're doing really well. So the relationship was a difficult one, in the sense that my family didn't approve. So in a way, that's why I didn't mind that part of it.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't necessarily think there is a like sit down and make a decision, right? You'll look after this and I'll do this. It's like any team, isn't it? You play to the strengths of the team, and you each have your own jobs. And so when I was married, I looked after the cleaning of the inside of the house, and my now ex-husband used to look after the garden, and I'm rubbish at gardening. So I was just like, when he went, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have to sort that out, and so just I get a guy to come and do it, because I'm like, it's just not my thing at all. And it is the same with money, isn't it? Like you said, you play to the strength. So I mean, there are controlling relationships around money where people are actually taking over all of the money stuff, so that they can control the other person. But it doesn't sound like that was the situation for you.
No, I think financially it was quite comfortable, you know, because he had enough and I was just starting out. So it allowed me to concentrate on, I was doing my financial planning certificate. I had my second or third paper to finish. So I was doing that at the time, and I was, you know, I couldn't drive, so I was learning how to drive as well. So there was a couple of
my halves.
No, I know. I sort of learned very late in life. And that was quite full on for me. So, you know, doing exams. So over the years, I just knew that I could save more. But it's not like he didn't let me look at the bank statements or anything like that. I sort of knew what was going on, and he used to show me, and he used to sort of educate me. The thing that used to terrify me was computers. I still wasn't comfortable using, you know, laptops or PCs, and it was those chunky PCs in around that time. So, you know, I think I was even petrified of switching one on because even in the bank, it was all paper based, you know, so I didn't have to use the computer very much. So I think that's, you know, so I just, you know, stayed back from it. I was quite happy. As long as he showed me what was going on, it was okay. But there were other areas that he took control of, you know, which I sort of am reflecting back on. Things like, you know, he wouldn't let me drive because he was faster, you know, than me. And there was things that he would just take control of, and he wouldn't let me do stuff. So I don't know if I was a little bit I was quiet, pretty sort of submissive in that sort of sense. But I think I may have been even, you know, mirroring stuff that, you know, how my mum was. But yeah, like you said, it was generally okay. It's only when it sort of changed that, you know, I didn't realize how much of an impact it had, you know, on my life after that.
Absolutely. So when you split up, what was the impact of him having looked after the money side of things and the financial planning side of things? How did that impact you?
Well, I think initially I was just I think I just had so much emotion. First of all, I felt quite hysterical. You know, I was like, oh my God, you know, what is going on here? How can this be? You know, the backstory is we'd been through so much, you know, to get to this point where my family was starting to come round to our relationship. You know, for 3 years, they didn't speak to me very much. So it was quite a difficult time. So initially it was like, you know, I was quite hysterical, just overwhelmed. I was angry. I felt betrayed. I felt quite ashamed. You know, there was a lot of guilt there, you know, lots of conversations in my head thinking, you know, hearing my mum saying, I told you so, told you he wasn't going to be the right person for you and he'd leave you, or he'd, you know, that he wasn't, you know, going to stand by you, as you said. So initially I was playing with all of those emotions. It didn't really have anything to do with money. So that feeling of betrayal, I trusted him. You know, he was somebody that I put my, you know, whole trust into. I talked to him about everything, money, our future vision, you know, we were going to get married, you know, and then all of a sudden it all came to a halt. You know, what did I do wrong? You know, I'm thinking about, I just felt like I'd failed. There were just so many questions. And then I was like looking at other couples, comparing myself to them. So I just didn't know where to start. And because we'd only been in the house 4 years, and there was still a lot of, there was a lot of debt in the property. There was a lot more mortgage than equity. There was about 4K in equity. So there wasn't much to play with. And I wasn't thinking about the practical stuff. I was just thinking with my heart, and I thought, oh, maybe I could just, like, you know, maybe it's just like a bad dream and it's just going to go away. So the first few weeks were quite tough, but I realized that I then came across one of his bank statements, and that's when I saw that there was money going out of the account into somebody else's. And that's when the alarm bells sort of tinkered, and I thought, right, this is not, something's more amiss than I even thought. So what do I do? And I just thought, right, okay, I've just got to think practically. What do I do? You know, I've got to think with my head. I can't let this thing go. And I felt really lucky because when I was at the bank, I made some really good friends, and there was one couple in particular, and they really held my hand through it all. And you know, where I was really emotional, they sort of kept me grounded. So you know, I remember my friend Jane saying, right, okay, where's your passports, where's all your bank statements, get everything together and let's see where we're at. So I think that was really important, to have somebody for me to be able to reach out for help, because I wasn't thinking straight, just to keep me grounded. I mean, I was you know, I'd been a financial advisor for 4 or 5 years, so it wasn't long enough for me. I was still training as well at the same time. So what I did was I thought, right, what don't I want? I didn't want to go back home.
Yeah.
I didn't want my parents to say I told you so. That feeling that I just failed, that, you know, I was feeling really guilty. So it's just easier to focus on what I didn't want. So I thought, right, what do I want? I want to stay in the house. So that's what I had decided. I thought the only way I'm going to stay in London is to stay in this house. And I felt that that was just the least disruptive sort of measure. So I made a list and I wrote down all the my expenses, and I, you know, worked out whether I could keep the house and pay the mortgage at the same time, because nothing was going to change with the mortgage. The amounts would have stayed the same. And then I spoke to my friend again, and we sort of worked out what was possible. And my one goal was just to get the house. That's all it was. I didn't care about anything else. I just wanted a roof over my head. It was just my security and safety that was the thing, that, you know, that was really important. So that's where I went. So my lesson from that was probably that, you know, your emotions are all over the place, but it's okay to have somebody, you know, that you trust, that can keep you grounded and help you see the wood for the trees. So yeah, so that's where I was.
Absolutely. No, I think that's totally right. Do you think the fact that you hadn't been the one who looked after the money made this split more difficult?
Yeah, in a way, I you know, thinking back, I only having done some of the money coaching work on myself, and that's one of the reasons I did that, because I wanted to work on my own money beliefs. I got into the habit of that innocence, burying my head in the sand. So it got to the point where I don't really want to deal with computers. I don't want to have a look, you know, look at the spreadsheets. I don't need to. He does it all. We're going to be married. We're going to have a future. So there was lots of assumptions that I'd made along the road, that he was always going to be there. I couldn't imagine, you know, my life, you know, at that time without him. So I think I got into this, you know, a habit of thinking, well, I don't need to. He does all that. And I can just, you know, focus on the fun stuff, saving for our holiday, saving for the wedding and planning and all of that, and, you know, and pursuing my career. So from that point of view, I would say that it felt very emotional and I didn't know where to start. I think that's where it affected it the most.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And I think that that is what a lot of people go through. It's that additional fear that you know, not only have you got the split to deal with, not only have you got all the other emotions around the fact that that person's not going to be there anymore, but on top of that, then you've got I'm going to have to look after part of my life that I haven't touched so far. I've kind of like stayed away from it. So yeah, that's really interesting. So since you became a financial coach, obviously things have changed quite a lot. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was around money mindsets, because I think when you're starting out kind of on your own and moving into the next chapter of your life and starting to plan for what you want, I think one of the things that can really hold you back if you're not careful is your attitude to money and your mindset around money. So you know far more about this than me. So can you explain what a money mindset is, what they are, and how they impact on people's ability to manage their finances?
Yeah, so a money mindset is, in simple terms, it's just our experiences and what we learn from those experiences, and then we make it mean something. And that's as simple as I can, get it. And, if something, giving you the example of my dad, so I enjoyed the savings, I enjoyed accumulating money. My dad was quite strict. I was brought up in quite a strict cultural sort of environment. And in those days, the boys were sort of groomed to be, providers, and girls were, trained in to be sort of domestic. And I had to learn how to cook and clean from the age of probably about 11 or 12. And they weren't too concerned about me going to university and getting a degree. It was more about, when can we get an arranged marriage sorted out for her, and that she will be settled, and then she'll be able to look after her extended family. So when I did, go out of the box and decided to meet somebody that was not within our culture, that was really tough for my dad, and I'd betrayed him. So part of that, since then I've always realized that I was looking for that validation. I wanted to feel good enough, because I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel deserving. So when I did accumulate those savings, the impact of that was that, okay, so if I'm saving money, then I'm being good. I am deserving.
Yeah.
So part of that was to make my dad happy, that I would earn his love. And
crikey.
Yeah, so it was quite difficult. That's one. So when we have those experiences, it leads us to behaving in a certain way. And for me, that behavior was, if I keep saving and not spending on unnecessary items, then that means that my dad loves me. So that's a belief that I held on to for so long. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I know that that wasn't true.
Yeah.
Because it's only recently that I had a huge clearing conversation with my dad, because I didn't realize how long I'd been holding on to that, and for years and years I felt that, in my heart I know that he loves me, but I made it mean that he didn't, that he always loved my brothers more than he loved me. But I know that wasn't true. And there was one sentence that he said, that you're all the same. You're all the same to me. So I think the first question it's to think about is just get curious. It's natural to feel defensive when people talk to you about various things, but that's because those thoughts have been ingrained in us. We've learnt those beliefs for so long that we've observed, everything that we do, we observe it from the people around us. And so it's just about getting curious. Well, when something happens, when an event happens, what emotions are coming up? And naturally, they'll be like these survival responses, like fear or anger or shame, or feeling really annoyed or frustrated. Just when those feelings and emotions come up, that's when you stop. You think, I'm having some kind of emotional feeling. Now, this is going to make me go and do something. So what is that action? What is it going to make me do? And for me, it was always food. I used to, my parents used to work for, yeah, they used to work for Jacob's Bakery years ago, and cereal partners, sort of the Nestle kind of places. So yeah, we always had biscuits in the house, and my dad used to store them in my bedroom. So yeah, it's a secret biscuit eater. So that was my go-to. Anything like biscuits or pastries or sweet stuff, if I felt something, I immediately wanted to reach for food. And then I think, well, what happens after that? Because all of that behavior leads to something. You eat it, and then after you've eaten it, you feel, oh, sugar, I shouldn't have had that. I should have, now I feel bloated. Now I feel like this. Now I look ugly, or now I don't look great. And then when you're in that mode, you sort of think, okay, so what do you end up doing as a result? So then it's that, you might hide, or how does that show up in your life, so then it sort of has an impact in an indirect sense. It might be that you that you stay not visible. You know, you're not out there in your business doing what you need to do, or you might just retreat and just keep yourself in your shell, and because it keeps you safe, and that safety means that you're okay, because we want to avoid that pain, and we always seek the pleasure. So if it keeps us safe, there's a familiarity. But staying in that old pattern, we've just got to look at, well, is that serving us? How is that serving me? And then it's like saying, well, okay, if I could press a magic button, what do I want it to feel like? How do I want to feel? Well, I don't want to feel anger. I don't want to feel frustrated. I don't want to feel guilty. So what do I want to feel instead? I want to feel happy. I want to feel fulfilled. So that's sort of how you sort of move through it. But initially, I think it's just about getting curious about and getting to know yourself. You know, the more we know ourselves and what we like, what we don't like, how people make us feel, I feel it's really important. And to do that, we all need a bit of space.
Yeah.
Time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That, crikey, it sounds like you've really taken some time to explore all of this. If you're in a place where somebody's listening to you and going, wow, I wish I was anywhere close to know myself as well as you do, because I'm sitting here thinking that like the getting curious bit, where do you go from there? Is it about journaling? Is it about just having it in your head? Are there practical things that people can do?
Yeah, so I think a lot of my stuff came out when I was coaching. So when I was doing my money coaching certificate about 2 years ago, that's when all of that came out. So what I learned from that experience was to talk to somebody, to speak to a coach or somebody that understands and can help you move you through that feeling of overwhelm or fear or frustration. If you are noticing those habits, the things you can do yourself is to write down, what am I noticing about myself? What keeps happening again and again? And it's like, when you're stood, you're stood somewhere and you want to get ahead, but you can't. You just feel stuck. You want to get to the other side of the river, but something's holding you back. When you recognize those feelings, that's when you know you need some kind of help. And one of them, as I said, is talk to somebody or a coach. And secondly, absolutely, journaling or writing down. I find that when I want to talk to somebody, and let's just say my best friend's not around or Barrett's not around, and I get this sense that I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to go out of my mind. I need to do something. And that's when I do get my journal out. My journal becomes my friend. And I literally just write whatever's in my mind. I'll just say, oh, today I feel, I've got a really sore shoulder, or my neck's feeling really tight, and just try not to leave any gaps. And if there are any gaps, you literally just fill it with what's physically in your mind at the time. So what that does, it helps you unravel. It unravels, and before you know it, you might even think, okay, I could do that. Because intuitively, we know. Our gut feeling is so powerful that we actually know what we need. We just haven't been given the space to think about it. We're constantly on the go. We're always doing, we never stop. There's always something to do. We find things to do. And when we do stop, it feels uncomfortable. So you could, and the other thing is just engage in some creativity, whether it's sitting, drawing, or just getting some pastels out, or whether it's ironing. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be something really simple. I like to clean sometimes. I like to clean cupboards out, and it's something I saw my mom do years ago, and she still does it. I know that when I have her come and stay with me, my spice cabinet is going to be spotless. So I always look forward to that. But unfortunately, she hasn't been able to come down for a while.
You don't have old ones that have been in there since 1984 then?
Yeah, I did find one recently when I realised one of my lentils wouldn't cook properly. Well, that's gone. Yeah. So there's a number of things. You could just engage in something other than thinking about it. It's just about coming out of your head, and for it to sort of transpire or come out somewhere, whether it's writing or whether it's drawing or whether it's just going for a walk with yourself. Just be with yourself without any kind of distractions. And that's really special, when you honor that for yourself. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's also a way of you showing that you care about you. So I would probably say they're the sort of first things to think about. And then just think, well, okay, well, who can I talk to? If you feel that this is coming up again and again and again, and you want to move forward, build that new life for yourself after something so difficult and traumatic, then who can you speak to? And there's lots of people like you and I, and there's lots of people in our industry now who are headed towards the coaching space. So there's a lot more support out there. When I was going through my split, I relied on friends, and well, I couldn't really speak to my family at the time, so that was a little bit a sad time for me. But yeah, so just to find somebody to talk to, and they will sort of move you through that space as well.
I think that's really important, because starting off on the right footing when you've come through something like a divorce or a separation or ending of a civil partnership, that you need to do the preparation work. It's like redecorating a room. You've got to, the prep probably takes longer than the putting the paint on the walls, but that's the most important bit, because that's the bit that will end up setting you right and giving you the best chance of a good finish. And I think it is the same with money, isn't it? It's about doing the work and putting the time in, and working, perhaps like you say, work with, if this is sitting on somebody's mind and they're going, oh, do you know what, this is where I am, I don't have a clue about myself, I don't understand how I react in certain situations to money. And I think working with a coach at that point is a really valuable thing to do. Tell us a bit, because there are so many coaches out there at the moment, like, who coach in all sorts of aspects of your life, and you could end up with a coach in pretty much every part of your life. So just tell us a little bit about how a financial coach and how working with a financial coach can help, and what it kind of looks like and feels like.
Yeah, so with any kind of coaching, I think that it's important to just find somebody that's going to listen to you, so that you feel heard. And when I talk to my clients, it's the first session is always about, well, why are they here, and what's going on for them, what's happening right now in their lives, because that's the most important thing for them. And it's just giving them that space to talk, and it can be about anything. We're not talking about money, we're not talking about anything. It could even be their relationship, it could be just how they're feeling today and what's coming up for them. And I like to call it like it's clearing the decks, because once you've cleared the decks, it gives you even more space to think clearly. So and that could take half an hour, it could take an hour, it could take up to 2 hours. So that first session is really important, and it allows me to explore, get to know them, they get to know me, and it just feels comfortable. And then they can decide whether they're going to, they want to move ahead and carry on with that. There's never any obligation, they can stop that conversation at any time that they feel uncomfortable. So yeah, just giving them that space to talk is the first part. And then if you want to work further, then it's about sort of saying, okay, now we've cleared the decks, let's have a look at what's possible. So as a life planner, I follow the Kinder methodology. So it's all about exploration, finding out what's important to you in your life, what lights you up, what fulfills you, what makes you happy, all of the things that you want to do. So and also, when their mind is clear, the creative element comes into play, and then they start visualizing lots of things. And there's some clients who find it difficult to visualize, so I tend to tap into their feelings. So it could be that, how does this make you feel, or when you do that, what does it you know, and some people describe it, they're very verbal in terms of how they want to describe it. So recognizing how people are, everybody's different, so just noticing how they like to be responded to is quite important. And then there will be other sort of little obstacles, little niggly bits that come in the way. So it's about sort of saying, okay, so, you know, you really want that life, you know, if you really want to be there, what's stopping you from getting there right now? So what are the things that are getting in the way? And then it opens up that whole arena of they can just bash out everything that they want to. And then we work through them. It's helping them move from that place to where they want to be. So, and then when we do that, then it's about sort of saying, okay, so what's the plan? What are the small steps that we're going to take to get you there? So, you know, so they will be creating a vision around what they really want. And that vision will be based on what connects to them, you know, what they really care about, what their values. And from that, then all the goals are born. So our goals are just strategies. They're just, you know, little strategies that help us get to that end result, which is a feeling. So that's how, I think that's sort of the framework of what it would feel like to work with a coach. And then the action plan is, you know, you create a life plan. That's the way I work. I always feel that it's always your life plan before any kind of portfolio or investments.
Yeah.
And because it's that plan that once you have that plan, it's what prescribes how your money will support you going forward. And then it's a bit of hand holding. You have somebody that you trust that can guide you and stay with you, you know, on track. And also when things come up again, because they're not going to just go away. You know, our lives are not a straight line, as you and I both know. Things happen, things change. You meet somebody again, that relationship might break up, or you know, and then you eventually do meet someone, and then that trust element is really difficult. But then when you're working with someone, then you can say, oh gosh, you know, this is what's come up for me. I have clients that I work with on a quarterly basis, but we always check in on a monthly basis, and we have a chat and a conversation. And you know, one of my clients came and said, Nila, you know what, I'm back to chocolate and drinking again, what's going on? I said, right, what's going on for you? So it's just a conversation, and within 5 or 10 minutes, you know, you've just sort of guided them and reminded them that, hang on a minute, this was your old way of being, this was your pattern, you know, this is what used to happen. So just take a moment and think, what's happening here for you, and what do you need, what do you want to happen instead? If that's not how you want to feel, then where do you want to be? So that's generally the framework when, you know, you work with a coach. But it's also them helping you recognize what your way of being was. And then once you get to know yourself, then you'll be able to manage that a lot quicker, you know, if something happens. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It sounds a very gentle process.
Yeah.
Which I really like, because I think that sometimes coaching feels a bit and I love the way that you talk about it. It kind of feels quite internalized, but in a good way. I think sometimes you've got to look inside. And when a relationship's ended, it's quite easy to take on blame and guilt. And like you talked about at the beginning, about the relationship coming to an end, and you could have worked harder, but the blame for the end is quite often transferred to the other person, and kind of thinking about, well, what did I do that I would like to do differently in the future? And that's not to say blame yourself, because I don't think that's particularly useful either, but just to kind of try and think about how you would like to be in the future is really helpful, really useful. We're coming to the end of our chat, and I just wondered if there was anything else you wanted to add before we finish up.
What would I want to add? I would probably just add that you don't have to do it by yourself. You know, just do talk to somebody. If you don't know where to start, just reach out to somebody, even if it's yourself. That's a great start. You know, you're on this podcast, you provide this amazing service. So yeah, definitely reach out and talk to somebody first. If you don't talk, then, and it's okay, you know, it took me a while to speak about this situation and relationship, and we don't have to feel bad about ourselves, because these are just life experiences and life happens to all of us. So just be kind to yourself, and know that you deserve a better life. And you know, it's one of my things that one of my big missions is that I just want to help as many people feel happy and fulfilled. We only have one life, and we all deserve to experience and live that fulfilled life before we leave this earth. So be one of those, be one that wants to be fulfilled and is deserving.
I love that. What an amazing way to finish.
Yeah,
Nila, thank you so much for joining me today. Just to, I know I just said we were going to finish off, but just to, how can people get in touch with you if they want to contact you?
Okay, so I'm on all the social media channels, so Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, and you'll find me via Prosperity Life Planning. And on Instagram, I'm at the Financial Freedom Expert. And my website is www.prosperitylifeplanning.co.uk. Not quite finished yet, but there's still a little bit of work in progress to add all the coaching stuff. So, but yes, and obviously through you, you know, people know. Contact me through you.
So we'll put all of Nila's contact details in the show notes. Nila, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been brilliant.
Thank you for having me. I've absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye.